It was. And I think today, if there were any doubt in anybody's mind about Otto's unsuitability, his lack of experience for this role, today confirmed all of those because he could not read the room. He did not have a plan for the press. He did not appreciate the severity of the situation that we find ourselves in. He did not even see his own culpability and his role in what has led us to this point. He did not see it serious enough that Ghana had gone through 6 games, AFCON qualifiers, without a win. He didn't think it was a problem that in one qualifying series, we've lost our home record at the Babayara, we've lost our home record at the Accra Sports Stadium, and he kept using words like, this is normal. He said, it happens. And then he says, this happens to teams, so we'll come back. And when he repeatedly is using phrases and expressions that speak about the normality of what has happened in extremely abnormal times, there is clearly a pattern of someone who is not consistent with the reality that everyone else sees. So all of that, and I'm sure as the show progresses, we will be able to unpack bit by bit. And a lot of the things that got him into, not altercations, but the banter, if you like, with every journalist he did that with, was because he failed to do what the average Ghanaian would have expected, which was 2 questions, really. So the first 45 minutes of the presser were essentially about, do you accept responsibility for what has happened and your role in it, and are you going to resign? That is what God said.
What should that take 45 minutes?
Because
it's a pretty straightforward question.
Because he skirted around the issues and was never prepared and kept giving excuse. So at a point, I got frustrated. And then I asked him, in your explanation yesterday, it appeared as though you are pointing at every other thing but yourself. So if listeners would remember, last month, Otto Addo says, Ghanaians have to accept that the players we have these days are not good enough.
Right.
That was an excuse he gave. Yesterday, he blamed the failure of the team to qualify on what he says is hatred towards him.
From outside, towards him and then the players.
And when so today on 4 other occasions, because I was counting, he mentioned that Ghanaians hated him.
Wow.
And he said when he got the job, there were people who behaved in a manner that showed that they hated him. And then when they qualified, some of these people now came back and they were ashamed and all of that. And so first he says it's the players, then he said it's hatred. So Did
you get any impression as to who these haters were?
He didn't.
Ex-players?
He didn't, but I put it
coaches.
So I asked him, what is the relationship between the hatred that you say is visited on you and the players and your capacity to find tactical solutions, your capacity to influence this team to play in a manner that is an improvement on what was before? Then he beats a retreat and then says, it is not entirely to blame for our failure to qualify. It's just a fraction, but even if it is 1%, sometimes it is what will stop you from qualifying.
Okay.
But essentially, his communication, his perception, and that's what I'll put it down to, because I don't think that even Otto's mentors, and I said this to him, and perhaps it was one of the things that got him off, and then he had to ask that question that he asked, was the fact that even his mentors, when they go through a bad spell, they would acknowledge the fact that this is not normal. And they will acknowledge the fact that they have a role to play in it. And where necessary, they would assume responsibility and apologize if they have to. So he didn't see the need to.
Yeah. So then let's just show listeners your encounter with him. So you ask him the question.
So I asked
what was your question?
So I asked him that he is given a litany of excuses. Does he feel responsible for this? And also the fact that his posture is not consistent with the way Ghanaians expect a national team coach to behave when you're calling them haters and you're making all kinds of excuses. So that set him off. And then he also said he's not going to resign. So I asked him, since you say you're not going to resign, a decision has to be made regardless, because in a properly functioning setup, you would have to review things, right? And make a determination of whether to continue or not. Now, the persons making that determination would have to consider a number of factors, which would include, or would have to consider 2 things: why you have to be kept, or why you have to go. So if there is a case to be made for you, why do you think you deserve to be kept in the job?